YouTube has gotten worse again, what a surprise. In case you're unaware, YouTube put out this tweet a while back saying they'll be revoking verification for most channels, with the implication being that they're defaulting to Twitter's tactic. So basically, rather than receiving the coveted checkmark for being a certain size, channels will instead be given it at YouTube's discretion. So, in other words, celebrities and corporate channels will be given top priority while also making it harder than ever for conventional channels who surpass 100K to get it naturally. But, fortunately, this issue may or may not have been completely overblown by everyone. The supposed reasoning behind this change was to ensure that channels seeking to impersonate others won't be able to gain verification and redirect revenue from those they claim to be. Which, I guess makes sense when you take into account all those Family Guy clip channels that get thousands of subs while uploading unedited clips in a manner that completely breaks copyright law. I can imagine there are lots of channels like that whose existence pose a problem for copyright holders, and disallowing verification may undermine them, but to unverify almost everyone on the entire site seems like a gross overcorrection. And for once, believe it or not, YouTube has changed its mind about this. Susan herself put out several updates just a few days ago stating that all channels may keep their verification status after all. Well, this is quite a new turn of events. Now, you might say this doesn't solve things for up-and-coming channels wishing to become verified in the future, but looking at the YouTube help page for channel verification badges clears things up quite a bit. Because let's face it, those YouTube tweets aren't exactly transparent. But in theory, these are the concrete requirements for what a channel needs to become verified. Aside from the standard 100K subscriber milestone, channels must also be authentic in who they're representing, provide basic documentation to prove this, and have a complete channel, quote unquote. These last few requirements may be a bit broad, and especially what constitutes being active as a channel, quote unquote, but overall, nothing here suggests that they intend to be exclusionary to normal channels who aren't run by companies or celebrities. You could say that's their real intention behind it all, but with these guidelines in place, I doubt that it would even be possible to gatekeep smaller channels, at least in terms of getting verified. And with YouTube going back on its word to unverify the pre-existing channels, there's basically no issue here anymore. Poor communication, obviously, but other than that, I doubt all this will affect anything. But that being said, before all this happened, there was one channel whose verification status was interesting. And interesting enough for me to want to talk about it in its own video. And I guess you could call it a happy accident that channel verification as a topic became more relevant than ever at the exact same time I decided to make the video. The channel in question being the official channel for one of the most acclaimed sitcoms of all time, The Office. Now, like a lot of people, I've seen quite a bit of the show and have revisited a lot of the more iconic moments on YouTube. And when doing so, this channel was usually the one to have the clips I was looking for. But, strangely enough, despite having almost 1.5 million subscribers, the channel does not actually have a verification tick that most official channels have. At the time, I assumed, like the aforementioned Family Guy channels, this was just a popular and dedicated Office clip channel that wasn't officially run by anyone working for the company. But in the description, it's cited as official, and the channel itself is linked in the Office's official verified Twitter account, so that begs the question, why is this channel not verified? There's a second official Office channel that's been verified even before reaching 100K, meaning that the team behind these channels actively requested it from YouTube, so I think it's pretty safe to say they do definitely care about being verified. You might say maybe it got unverified during that little phase when YouTube started taking away the verification ticks, but keep in mind, this channel has been unverified for a while, which was back when the verification requirement was only to have 100K. I can prove this by pasting the channel's URL into the Wayback Machine to view previous versions, but when I did, it got me to wonder, was this channel ever verified before? If you go back to when the channel had just broken 100K, it does in fact have the tick. So what happened? Looking back at the YouTube help page, it never mentions that it's even possible to lose a tick once you already have it, so I was honestly quite confused. What did this poor brand channel do to get its tick taken away? I mean, The Office does have some pretty edgy stuff sometimes, so I guess maybe they got a strike or something and got some channel restrictions put in? I figured that the only way to know for sure was to go back through the entries in the Wayback Machine to find the exact day they had lost the tick to see what had changed. It took a good 40 minutes of clicking, but I finally narrowed things down to sometime between late April 17th, 2019 and early April 19th, 2019. Now this is where things get a little bit interesting. You probably noticed that in the earlier entries the channel was named The Office US, but in the later entries it had been changed to The Office. Now, what's important to note is that the day The Office lost its tick is the same day the name changed as well. But, like I said, the guidelines for verification didn't mention anything like this, so I decided to put the YouTube help page itself into the Wayback Machine to see exactly what the guidelines for verification were around the time the channel had gotten unverified. And surprise, surprise, the old version of the page had a section dedicated to keeping the verification tick, in which they say this: if you change your channel's name, you can't keep the verification badge for the renamed channel. Hey, so that's it then. When they changed the name from The Office US to The Office, they inadvertently got the tick taken away from them. Ouch. All I can say is ouch. So, if you care enough, you might be wondering what's next for them. And honestly, I don't know. They could probably get the tick again if they change the name back to The Office US and look more official by doing it. So if you're part of The Office's marketing team and you're watching this video somehow, maybe consider it. But since the new guidelines don't even mention this technicality anymore, maybe they'll get verification reinstated naturally. I mean, if you really think about it, the entire purpose for removing the verification tick for a name change is probably to avoid impersonation. If a random channel got verified, it could theoretically change its name and icon to impersonate someone else, in the comments at least. But I'll admit, this is a bit far-fetched. I highly doubt anyone with over 100K would risk their channel's well-being for such a stupid stunt, but I can imagine this is why YouTube instituted such a rule. Still, none of this matters anyway. I think if there's anything that can be taken away from all this, it's just that the tick is just a tick. And at the end of the day, not having it hasn't had too much of an effect on The Office, and it probably wouldn't have affected that many others either, even if YouTube hadn't remedied their mistake. I guess that no matter how many horrible decisions the site makes, whether they clear them up or not, at the end of the day, we're all still here.
Love it.